Forbidden love is really thrilling. Unlike you, Amy got pregnant right away. Honestly, a barren wife is worthless. Amy, my husband's sister, talks about being pregnant with his child. The two of them laugh at me, looking proud. I knew it. My worst fears came true, and I couldn't hide my shock. Were you meeting Amy when you said you were working late? I asked, confronting Henry, who responded with annoyance. Yeah. So what? What's the point of staying with a wife who can't have kids? Besides, Amy is cuter and more charming than you. Anyone would choose her over you. Not being able to have children is my fault. I had blamed myself, but I never imagined the affair was with my husband's sister. Even though I wanted to believe in my husband until the end, there was no need anymore. And so, I took action. I started moving to uncover the truth, but a new fact was revealed. I never imagined it would lead to such an ending back then. My name is Nancy, and I'm 25 years old. After graduating from college, I was working hard as an office worker. I met Henry at a cafe I happened to visit during an outside sales trip. The cafe, where I could quietly reflect, was my favorite place. During breaks, I would go to the cafe, and Henry, always in a suit, would be there. We both sat at the same counter seats and ordered the same coffee every time. I don't remember what initially sparked it, but Henry, who was naturally sociable, started talking to me. At first, we made small talk, but gradually, Henry began sharing more about himself. Henry, a year older than me, was also an office worker. His parents divorced when he was a child, and he was raised by his father. A few years later, his father remarried, and they now lived with his stepmother and her daughter, Amy. It seemed like a complex family situation, but Henry didn't show any sign of that and appeared to love his family. By the way, the other day, Amy. Henry often spoke happily about Amy, his stepsister. A sister not related by blood but much younger. He is so affectionate to her. Having lost my parents in an accident and with no siblings, I envied Henry's family environment. As we gradually grew closer, we started meeting on weekends, turning into a romantic relationship. Henry, wanting to introduce me to his family soon after we started dating, invited me to his home. I was genuinely happy, thinking he was considering our future together. Above all, I was thrilled that his parents were so kind to me. With a strong longing for family, Henry's family was my ideal. However, I felt a slight discomfort with the closeness between Henry and Amy. Even in front of me, his girlfriend, Amy, clung to Henry. Henry told me they were close, but they really are. Though I felt a mix of jealousy and discomfort, I convinced myself that this might be normal for siblings, something I didn't have. Our relationship continued smoothly, and we deepened our bonds with his family. Honestly, there were times when I felt annoyed by Amy's presence. She would sometimes join us on dates meant for just the two of us. Nancy, is it okay if Amy comes with us today? I called her, and she wants to come. Of course, I couldn't refuse. Amy, without any sign of apology, frequently tagged along on our dates. Even in my presence, she clung to Henry as usual. As if she was showing off to me, Henry's girlfriend. Even though Amy was still a college student, could siblings over 20 years old be this close? My dissatisfaction grew day by day. One day, I vented my accumulated frustration to Henry. Sensing my feelings from my attitude, Henry said, "I'm sorry for making you feel bad. But Amy is an important part of the family. She may be shy and hard to read, but she wants to get along with you too, Nancy." When we met as a trio, Amy's attention was entirely on Henry. I felt almost invisible to her, making me question Henry's words. "The only person I want to make happy is you, Nancy. I'll make you the happiest. You are the most important to me." I believed Henry's words, and at the age of 23, I accepted his formal proposal and got married. Henry's parents were delighted, saying they were happy to have me as part of the family. As someone with no relatives, I finally gained the family I had always wished for. Surrounded by the people I loved, I was filled with happiness. Little did I know this was just the beginning of a turbulent life. We rented an apartment near his family's home and started our new life together. My MIL and FIL continued to treat me kindly, cherishing me like their own daughter. I thought of them as my real parents too. 2 years into our marriage, Henry and I, who both loved children, had discussed wanting kids even before getting married. But we still hadn't been able to conceive. People around us advised that we were young and shouldn't worry, and that it would happen naturally, but after 2 years of trying, we couldn't hide our anxiety. Frustrated by our inability to have children, Henry began to lash out at me with harsh words. "What's going on? It's been 2 years, and we still don't have kids. All my colleagues who got married around the same time are already fathers. I'm the one who's embarrassed at work." He blamed me for not being able to conceive. Every month, I'd get depressed when it didn't happen, and Henry's words weighed heavily on me. When Henry came home drunk, his true feelings seemed to come out, and he was even harsher. "Everyone at the party asked me again today, things like, 'When are you having kids?' You're useless. I really drew the short straw with you. Are you defective? How dare you deceive me? This feels like a scam marriage." He'd berate me and then fall asleep. Beside the sleeping, drunken Henry, I cried silently. Despite my struggles with infertility, Henry didn't support me as a husband should. We got married and became family, but I still felt alone. Gradually, I started to retreat into my shell. Henry's daily blame led me to blame myself too. One day, sensing something was wrong with me, my MIL came to visit alone. She handed me some brochures from OBGYN and gently suggested I get tested. Though it was a delicate issue and she seemed hesitant to bring it up, seeing my distress, she couldn't stay silent. Following her advice, it might be best for us to get tested as a couple and identify the cause. With that in mind, I decided to consult Henry when he got home from work. "Hey, how about we visit the OBGYN soon? I'd like you to come with me for a checkup too." Henry lay on the couch, fiddling with his phone, seemingly not hearing me. Despite his previous desire for children, we could no longer have a proper conversation about it. As I persisted, Henry snapped and yelled, "Shut up! It's your fault we can't have kids. Why should I go to the hospital? I'm busy with work, don't waste my time with this." Henry wants children too, yet he says such things. Shocked by his words, I couldn't respond. I didn't want to argue about children anymore. From that moment, we stopped discussing children, and a rift formed between us. Henry frequently stayed out late, claiming to be working overtime, and often came home early in the morning, citing business meetings or drinking parties. Our conversations dwindled. Yet, I grew suspicious of Henry's actions. On nights he claimed to be working late, he came home smelling of unfamiliar soap. Could he be showering somewhere else before coming home? Sometimes, he would even come back reeking of women's perfume. Still wanting to believe in my husband, I secretly checked Henry's wallet to clear my doubts. But there, I found undeniable proof of his affair: credit card statements. There were charges for luxury hotels and expensive women's bags. Of course, I had no recollection of these purchases, and the dates matched the nights Henry claimed to be working late. I knew it. My worst fears had come true. I couldn't hide my shock. I can't have children, and now my husband has another woman. What am I supposed to do now? I thought I had gained my dream family, but it was far from my ideal. Would I be alone again? Was it my fault for not being able to have children? Negative thoughts swirled in my mind. Just then, the faces of my MIL and FIL flashed through my mind. Even though things weren't going well with Henry, my relationship with his parents was good. They had become my closest confidants. They're the only ones I can talk to about this. I decided to confide in them about Henry. Although I had planned to discuss it over the phone, I couldn't figure out how to start, so I decided to visit them on a weekend. Today is a chance since Henry said he had to work overtime, so he wouldn't find out I came here. Determined, I pressed the intercom at their house, feeling nervous. Then, I heard a familiar voice from inside. "What? This voice, could it be?" To my surprise, it was Henry, who was supposed to be at work. "Henry? Why are you here? Weren't you at work? Why are you here?" I just stopped by on my way to work. Clearly flustered, Henry's eyes darted around. I came to see Mil and Fil. It seems quiet, are they out? Yeah. They went on a trip yesterday. A trip? Then why did you stop by? Just as I asked, a sweet, feminine voice came from inside the house. Hey, what's going on? Let's have dinner soon. I'm starving. When the door opened, Amy appeared in revealing loungewear. Seeing this, I was shocked, and Henry couldn't hide his agitation either. I stared at Henry, but he looked away, avoiding my gaze. Amy seemed to grasp the situation instantly and tried to cover it up. Nancy, welcome. My brother just got here too. You came at the right time. We're about to eat, so why don't you join us? Both Henry and Amy were visibly shaken. In the tense atmosphere, I couldn't just leave, so I waited alone in the living room while they prepared dinner. I don't even want to think about it, but could Amy be the woman Henry is seeing? While imagining the worst scenario, I overheard Henry and Amy whispering in the hallway. I quietly moved closer to hear them without being noticed. Why is Nancy here? You didn't tell me. I didn't know either. How could I know she'd come to the house? Their voices grew louder as their agitation increased. From their frantic exchange, my suspicions were confirmed. Certain of the affair, I opened the living room door and stepped into the hallway where they were. Is my being here that big of a problem? Realizing I had overheard their conversation, Henry was at a loss for words, completely flustered. Unable to respond, Henry stood there, bewildered, while Amy, seemingly resolved, suddenly clung to Henry's arm. Just as you imagined, Nancy. We're in that kind of relationship. Amy stared at me defiantly. He doesn't want a wife who can't have kids for 2 years. He says I'm better. Amy looked at me with a mischievous grin, like a child playing a prank. Seeing Amy's true nature, Henry sighed deeply, showing a resigned expression. A familiar scent wafted from Amy. Yes, it was the same women's perfume scent I smelled on Henry's clothes. Now that I think about it, even though Amy was a college student, she had a lot of brand name bags. Even with multiple part-time jobs, those were too expensive for a student. You were meeting Amy while saying you had to work late? When I confronted him, Henry, looking annoyed, said, Yeah, so what? What's the point of staying with a wife who can't have kids? Compared to you, Amy is cuter and more charming. Anyone would choose Amy over you. Amy clung tightly to Henry's arm again, giving me a triumphant smile. Their audacity made me more angry than sad. I was at a loss for words and just stood there. For the next few days, I couldn't even remember how I got through them. Just breathing was all I could manage, and seeing Henry's face made me nauseous. I wanted to get away from Henry and Amy as soon as possible. With that in mind, I proposed a divorce myself. As expected, Henry readily accepted the divorce. It was as if he had been waiting for me to bring it up. Afterward, I contacted my in-laws to inform them of the situation. It was then that they learned about Henry and Amy's relationship. My in-laws were furious over the phone. My Mil, in particular, was so shocked that I feared she might collapse, repeatedly apologizing to me in a faint voice. Feeling guilty for their sadness, I assured them that they were not to blame and expressed my gratitude for everything. Although we were no longer family after the divorce, I asked them to continue to look after me. Tearfully, they agreed to my final request. Henry packed his things and left the house. He showed no remorse or apology towards me. Amy, too, gave a half-hearted apology, saying, Nancy, I'm sorry, while looking at me mockingly. A few days later, I received the prepared divorce papers. After the divorce was finalized, I decided to move to an apartment near my office to reset everything. At times like this, I felt the advantage of being single and unencumbered. Although I had moved farther from my in-laws' home, my relationship with them continued. According to them, Henry and Amy had been disowned and kicked out of their home. Of course, maintaining their previous lifestyle in the neighborhood would be difficult. My in-laws, having cut ties with their biological children, cherished me even more. On my days off, I would have meals with them to prevent them from feeling sad. We had developed a bond stronger than blood ties. One peaceful day, about 2 years later, my MIL was suddenly struck by illness. Being in her 50s, her condition progressed quickly. Without time to prepare, both we and MIL herself were caught off guard, and she passed away shortly after her illness was discovered. Both FIL and I couldn't accept her sudden death. Shortly after, FIL's health declined, likely from the stress and fatigue, and he collapsed. Regretting that I couldn't do anything for MIL, I stayed by FIL's side to care for him. Losing FIL after MIL. I didn't even want to think about it, but the worst-case scenario crossed my mind. I did everything I could for him. I didn't want to experience the same sorrow as with MIL. After a period of frequent hospital visits, FIL gradually recovered, thanks to his own efforts. He eventually regained enough health to return home and resume daily life. When FIL's condition stabilized, I was taking care of him as usual when the intercom suddenly rang. Wondering who it could be, I went to the door and found the two people I never wanted to see again. Henry and Amy. They showed no surprise at seeing me and walked into the house as if nothing had happened. It's been 2 years since I last came home. I didn't even attend Mom's funeral. It's been a long time. I missed this place. This is where we first met, after all. Their nonchalant attitude left me speechless. Amy showed no sadness despite her mother's death. "So, I heard Dad's on the brink of death too?" Henry said, smirking, and I couldn't hide my anger. How could he say that about his own father? How was this person ever my husband? It makes me sick. "I don't know who told you, but you have nothing to do with this house anymore. Please leave." I tried to suppress my emotions and asked them to leave. "What are you talking about? I'm the eldest son. It's only natural that I inherit the estate. You're the one who doesn't belong here. Or are you after the inheritance too?" His rude words made me tremble with anger. It was clear Henry and Amy were back for the inheritance and insurance money. Thinking of FIL and MIL's feelings, I fought back tears. "By the way, you should be nicer to pregnant women. This is a critical time," Henry said, protectively placing a hand on Amy's belly. On closer inspection, Amy's belly was indeed rounded. "Yes, be careful. This is my precious baby with my brother." Amy smirked. "Amy's still a college student. We'll get married after she graduates. Unlike you, she got pregnant right away." They looked at each other and laughed. "We're siblings by blood, but now we're in love." "Forbidden love, huh? It's thrilling." "Stop it." "Well, we're going to get married and be a real family soon. Unlike someone else, I got pregnant easily. A barren wife is worthless." Their cruel words flowed non-stop, but they didn't hurt me at all. I couldn't help but laugh. "You two haven't changed. Congratulations on becoming a couple from siblings. Though I wonder if you ever saw each other as siblings. By the way, Amy, is that baby really Henry's?" The two of them looked puzzled. Seeing their confusion, I pulled out a document from my bag and showed it to them. It was a report from a private investigator detailing Amy's actions. The report contained numerous photos of Amy holding hands with another man, hugging him openly after school. "Sorry, Amy. Before divorcing Henry, I happened to see you at the cafe where I first met Henry. I had you investigated a little." Henry snatched the papers from me and read them frantically, his face contorted with disbelief. After reading, he glared at Amy with fury. "What the hell is this? No, don't believe this. He's just a friend. A college club mate." Amy stammered, obviously shaken. In the awkward silence, I delivered the final blow. "Steve, come here." I called, and a man holding a small child entered the room. "Let me introduce you. This is my husband, Steve, and our son. We had a child soon after we got married." "Wait a minute. Don't lie just because you're bitter about me leaving. You can't have children." Steve looked puzzled by Henry's words. That's just what you assumed. After we divorced, I went to an OBGYN for tests. The results showed no issues with my fertility. Henry was stunned, having always blamed me for our childlessness. I didn't want to tell you this, but the reason we couldn't have children was you, Henry. Henry turned pale as the truth hit him. What are you talking about? That's a lie. Amy is pregnant with my child. That's proof. Amy, standing next to him, also turned pale. Amy, whose child are you carrying? Don't you get it? You were just being used by Amy. According to the investigator, Amy was seeing someone else from her university. The father of the baby is probably that guy. To her, you were just a wallet who bought her expensive bags. Amy finally spoke up. Yes. It's true there were other men. But that has nothing to do with this. As my mother's biological daughter, I have the right to inherit her estate. So does my brother. You're not family anymore, Nancy. You have nothing to do with us. Amy's voice trembled with anger as she shouted, her attitude defiant, as if she had done nothing wrong. But, Amy, I'm sorry to say that even as her biological daughter, you can't inherit anything. After I said this, Raphael quietly entered the room. Father! The two had assumed he was hospitalized due to his poor health. Seeing him appear so suddenly, they reacted as if they had seen a ghost. I've heard everything from the beginning. Raphael began to speak calmly. I have already cut ties with both of you. The estate has been pre-transferred to Nancy, who took care of us like a real daughter. There's nothing left for you. Raphael continued, revealing that Amy had never been legally adopted when he married Maëlle. This meant that they had no claim to the estate. Now leave and never come back. Raphael yelled, his anger evident. No way. I went into debt thinking we'd get the inheritance. What are we supposed to do now? Amy muttered, tears welling up in her eyes. Henry, shocked by everything, seemed soulless. The two left the house silently, their previous bravado gone. After that, those two never appeared before us again. I heard later through the grapevine that Amy's baby was indeed not Henry's. Shocked, Henry abandoned Amy and the baby and disappeared. He quit his job and moved away, according to his colleagues. Amy, abandoned by Henry, had to drop out of college. Her boyfriend also left her, and she became a single mother. Without any parental support, Amy turned to alcohol, gambling, and other men, leading a troubled life. To avoid any regrets like with Maëlle, I moved into Raphael's house with my husband Steve and our son to take care of him. Raphael doted on our son, who loved him dearly, calling him Grandpa. Raphael's smile returned after losing Maëlle. A few months later, Raphael passed away peacefully at home. His final expression was calm and gentle. We still live in Raphael's house, with photos of our family and Raphael and Maëlle adorning the living room. Let's say hi to Grandpa and Grandma. At my words, my son folded his hands and greeted their photos. Raphael and Maëlle continued to watch over us warmly, just as they promised.